Hey everybody, welcome to the LiveCast Conversations with powered by Pealed Back. As always, I'm your host, the Coach Gene. And as you may realize, today's not Wednesday. And with everything else, this is a show about our bumps and our triumphs. And sometimes we gotta be flexible. So to be able to make episode 78 work today, here we are. Sudeshna Sen is a data scientist, business strategist, and a job search specialist. Having worked with Fortune 500 clients and startups alike across industries and domains, she believes in creatively connecting the dots across dissimilar domains to help you identify your ideal next steps in your career and business. So Sudeshna, welcome to the show and thank you for being our Friday guest.
Thank you so much for having me, Jean. This is a real treat.
It's awesome. And obviously we have a common thread is that we were both part of the Rising Leaders Global Summit this week.
We were, yes.
So big shout out to Kelly and Brenda who will be on the show in sometime, hopefully March or April, to talk about the experience of co-hosting and putting that on.
Absolutely. I loved the summit. I loved the participation they had as well. Some very good questions. So brilliant. Loved it.
That's what makes it all worth it. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. What has gotten you to where you are today, and let's unravel that a little bit.
Wow, that's a big question. Right. So, Jean, if I go back to my journey, I typically, like, if it was an interviewer in a job asking me this question, I would typically go back. Well, I did my master's and then I got a job at Deloitte and then I did management consulting for like the next 8 years or so. So from Deloitte to PwC. And then, I'm a data science professional and a business strategist. I still work in a corporate job where I do exactly those things. So that's the boring story.
So those are the things, those are the roles that you do.
Yeah, those are the roles that I do. But if I go back a bit further than my university days, I was brought up in India. I was raised in India, and the Indian middle class has a very strange sense of pride in intellectual education, if you will. And um, I had to do a lot of the things, perhaps because I was conditioned to do. I don't ever complain that I did my master's in economics or I went and worked for Deloitte and PwC. Those were amazing things that happened to me. But equally, sometimes I think back and I wonder if the success that I needed was or wanted or have had was because of those steps. And I always used to be very much into novels, science fiction, literature, all of that. And I genuinely had a flair for writing copy and a flair for data, a flair for actually understanding the person in front and the customer. So while I was doing my degree in economics, actually, and this was not my master's, during my bachelor's, far before digital marketing was a thing, I tried to take my passion for writing and people and turn it into a business. And I started doing a freelancing digital marketing business before digital marketing was a thing. And I started on earning really good money out of that, like at one point I was like, actually, going and joining this firm, one of the biggest firms across the world, is actually financially not a very good idea because I was earning more money in there. But as life would have it, I ended up doing data. I realized that I do have a knack for business. And then
Yeah.
obviously, these guys are big consultants, and it gave me this amazing opportunity to look into the Fortune 500s, like some of the top banks, some of the top retailers, some of the top, like across like government, public sector,
Yeah.
everything. And also gave me an idea of like what works, what sort of things work in business, what sort of things actually work in careers in a very data driven perspective. And then I realized while I was going through like the multiple job search processes as I changed jobs through my career and also helped people like random friends find jobs,
Yeah.
was that there was a pattern that always worked, but everyone was not seeing, everyone was thinking of this job search as a
Right.
numbers game. And then I started talking more about it, I started blogging about it, and then my other thing, the Abundant Psyche, sort of started from there. And then I was having interesting conversations, and the Not So Corporate podcast happened from there. So yeah, how did I get here? I don't quite know, but I think I basically always sort of picked up very dissimilar things and tried
Yeah.
to put them together to make something completely different and new in some
So it
ways.
sounds like curiosity is a big thing that drives is the underlying driver there, right? As you're talking about your story, be like, yeah, you were working for some of the big four consulting firms in the world. You're getting to see behind the scenes of like these Fortune 500 companies, what's happening, what's the data, and then as well, you had a very successful like marketing freelance agency that was starting to bloom, that was doing well, pulling all these different pieces together, going, well, here's some data, here's some experience, and actually here's the golden piece of being able to write that and disseminate that into some form of a story that connected with people. And for me, that's I'm like that version of connection, like your write up and everything else is all about connecting dots. And it just seems that you're like, how do these two things go together? I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be, I think, to have anyone who has a certain amount of success, I think, has that because of this innate curiosity that I think we are all born with. Like, we were talking about kids just before,
Yeah.
and like my 2-year-old, like he'll go on, what's that? Why is it that way? What is that? How does this work? They're always trying to figure out things, but somewhere along the way, I think we sometimes tend to lose it. But curiosity is definitely one of my big values.
Yeah, it seems like not losing that connection to asking questions, right? And the more questions that you dare to ask, the better you're going to get at asking questions, because it's like about how do I get the information I'm looking for to ask the next question, to ask the next to ask the next question. There it is.
Yeah, and I don't know, Jean, if you know one of my mentors, he always says that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask. And I feel like that's so true. That's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that from Mr. Robbins has shared that, and other people out there. That's definitely a question that continues. What's the name of your mentor?
James Wedmore. So yeah, he's good.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really powerful. It's an interesting piece, right? Like to switch around the idea of like it's not the quality of the things that we do, but the quality of the questions that we ask in our life that results in the things that we can then do, right? And even from your own story, you take that back. It's like the curiosity is like, what happens with this? What could happen? Like what could be made? Well, I'm going to put some things together, and then I'm going to find out.
Yeah, yeah. And to be honest, I don't know if you know about this gentleman, Naval Ravikant. He's one of the very successful, like he's the founder of AngelList, and he says something very similar as well. That when you try and combine very different things together, it becomes this one unique thing that only you have
Yeah.
because it's all you. So
Yeah. And you have to put a little bit of you in that mix of like it's almost like your curiosity then becomes the glue and the binding agent for these dissimilar things.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think quite a lot of times, and I myself have struggled with this, right? Like quite a lot of times we tend to think, okay, because our education system, because our society, everything pushes us towards the silos, it basically sometimes makes us wonder, well, I'm a data person. Who am I to talk about career change? Like that came up a lot for me.
Right.
And the way to sort of break that down is, well, because you are the data person or because you are the professional and not the HR, you have a completely different perspective, which is perhaps what's needed as well. And I think quite a lot of times I myself and I've seen other folks getting really worked up about, oh, but how can I combine this and this? They are just too dissimilar. But guess what? Like, you know, um, I mean, you can only try and see whether people like it or not.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? There's that boldness to do the experimenting with it. Is like, does this taste good? And it comes right
Yeah.
back to being a kid. Be like, how do they learn what they like to eat or not like? They try things. Like, that's
Yeah.
good. That's not good. And if any parents are watching, we also know what might taste good this week. When you make it again, they'll be like, "This is the worst thing I've ever put in my mouth." Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting. And when you talk about being the data person, it's like you're a person with data skills, right? And then you're able to, because you're a full, resourceful, creative person, and because you've got these data skills, then you're looking at the situation from a job search from with a different set of skills versus going, well, I'm a recruiter or I'm an HR specialist. Be like, well, I'm looking for a pattern. Do I see a pattern? Oh, there is a
Mm.
pattern. Test. The pattern holds. Now I can share this.
And I'll tell you a really random fact, and I hope none of my employers are listening. Well, actually, even if they are, they know I'm a bit out there sometimes, a bit edgy. Well, actually, to test out some of these things, I think there have been times when I was not looking for a job, but I tried doing certain things in a certain way to see whether this thing works or not.
Yeah.
Versus, well, if I switch that completely off on my LinkedIn, does that work? No. If I switch something else, does that work? If I upload a CV every day, does that work? Like, so all sorts of weird experiments have definitely run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the blessing of being the data science person, I guess. But yeah.
So, are you willing to drop a little bit of hints for anybody watching about what you found that was working for those that are in the job search community?
Sure. So there are a few things. One, I think the first one, and if you ask me only one, I would probably start with a story. And I think quite a lot of people think that I just have to tell everything that's in my head to this person in front of me.
Yeah,
But in reality, we forget that human beings, at the end of the day, we love stories. We say we love facts, but actually we love facts when they are in the form of a story.
when
Uh,
they're entertaining.
when they are entertaining, right? So, I mean, what I typically tend to do with my students and clients is that, yeah, tell me all your information and let's get the story out there. And then the other thing I have noticed is this confidence. And I think everyone I speak to has spoken to me about interview nerves. And I'm like, but why are you going into the job search thinking that they are there to judge you?
Yeah,
It's not about you, it's about the fit. And the moment you separate that, suddenly becomes a very different game. And then you are also going there to judge the fit as opposed to them judging you. So,
there's anybody that's listening. You can pause, rewind because that's the gem right there. Is like that perception, that perspective that it is not about judging you. It's both sides coming in to judge this concept of the fit. Like, can we get the best and the rightest fit possible on both sides of that? And that can be a part, like, somebody could step into that in a much more confident manner, going, I'm trying to figure out if this is the right fit for me, versus going into it going, are they gonna like me? Am I dressed right? Am I saying the right
Oh my
things?
God,
Be like,
100%. 100%. I mean, there have been jobs I have like, and it works both ways, right? Like, we have to remember that we are also interviewing the other person in front of us. Um, and there have been times when they have sent me to the next round, and I just have said, no, this doesn't work for me.
yeah,
Because if you are sort of going with that, oh, will they like me? Please, they like me. It's sort of a very scarcity driven mentality, all or nothing, and oh, if I don't have them, I won't have anything else. that's
yeah,
that's not really it. It's about like, there are plenty of opportunities out there, and there are,
yeah.
right? Like, we all know that. Like, look at the job boards, look at, like, there are plenty of opportunities out there, but it's just shifting that perspective and
Right.
calming down your nerves just by shifting that perspective. And also, like, within the programs that I run, I talk a lot more about confidence, because confidence isn't like this one thing that one day you are like, you know,
You're like,
suddenly
oh, let
start
me go
becoming.
grab my confidence jacket. I can put it on
Yeah,
for right
yeah,
now, and here we go, cool. And then when it's done, be like, I can go back to being the insecure person I've always been, right? Like underneath that jacket, and it. And you're right, it doesn't work right like that. Confidence is like, it's an experience, and it's a part of a presentation, but it's also like, I think confidence ties back into this trust within yourself, right? And where you're going to come from it.
yeah, 100%. I mean, well, I suffered myself a lot with confidence. And I mean, even when I was doing this, like, big consulting career, like consultant in London for one of the big fours, like, you're like, well, she's made it, right? But inside, I was this absolute crazy insecure person. And and that used to get noticed. Like, people can tell that. They'll
Mm-hmm.
probably be like, okay, can I trust this person? Does she have enough experience? Like, it comes across. And actually, how I started my journey on confidence, like this very, very long journey into the abundant psyche, was this exact, is there a confidence jacket?
Yeah.
Almost like you said. And I came across this lady, Amy Cuddy, her book called Presence, and her TED Talk. It's amazing, actually. If anyone wants to have a listen to that, it's only like, TED Talks are 18 minutes or something. And she explains there about the biochemistry of the body, and then you can get into the superwoman pose, or the big, stretch out your arms, that sort of a pose. Do that for a couple of minutes, and you'll be confident after a couple of minutes. Um, Now, that I really liked. It appealed to my scientific brain that, okay, there's some science behind it. Okay, it's
Right.
not me. It's something that's with my body, and like how I can change it, and it felt like I had some control over it. But I very quickly realized that that was that was important, and it was a good shortcut, but it was not the one that would sustain. And then that was when I started delving deeper and deeper and deeper into how do I solve this. And some answers came to me without me looking for them, some
Yeah.
I sort of sought out. So yeah.
Right. So you were on that journey of going, what would it mean for me to be confident beyond standing in my superhero pose or putting my confidence jacket on? How can I be that? Well, I'm not in one of those. It's kind of what I hear. So like again, it's like that drop of, you dared to ask. So like, what's that step beyond? Now I can start to get out of this fog of going, what what does confidence mean? How does it show up? What impact does confidence have in my world? So what was some of those aha moments as you started to go beyond the superhero pose of putting your momentary jacket on?
So there are a number of things, Jean. I started meditating around the same time as well. And I started delving into other personal development, biohacking, neuroendocrinology, that sort of work, like all sorts of random things that you wouldn't, like a normal person is generally not interested in these random things.
Yeah,
And I started again discovering those patterns. And one of the things that, again, I don't remember which talk it was, but there was this lady who was just saying that, or maybe it was one of my leadership trainings in one of the corporate organizations. Basically, they were saying that if you stand up straight and keep your posture absolutely straight and right, you look more balanced, you look more poised, and the audience thinks you're more confident. And then one of the other people said, well, actually, that's when I feel more confident as well.
right.
And I was like, okay, that's interesting, because what I was learning in yoga meditation was all about the spinal posture, that your spine needs to be straight, and you have the balance then. And that was all very interesting, and I started figuring out that there's some underlying commonalities between these very different subjects.
Yeah,
And like, I mean, we can do this right now. Like, this
sure.
is a sort of a relaxed pose if you lean on one place,
Yeah,
but if you stand up straight and tall, you just feel that much more elevated, conscious, aware.
yeah.
Because your awareness lies within your spine. um
Ooh,
so yeah, like I don't know enough of the, well, I don't even know if anyone knows enough of it right now, the neuroscience of it. But yeah, when your spine is straight, it just is a very different sort of awareness that you are in, which is why back in India, when we used to be kids and used to study, like everyone used to be like, sit straight while you are
yeah.
studying, sit straight. And funnily enough, I never really understood it, but I somehow did it. And even now, like, I can't, like, even if I'm sitting on the bed or on the couch, I can't help but sit straight. So, like, an expensive couch is just lost on me. But
Well, at the end of the day, like even though you were saying like it's true, we don't really know what all goes on or understand the whole body that we get to live in. That's a given, but we can see the effects that happen without knowing the mechanisms that are occurring. You can feel it, like, right, like many times throughout the my shows, like I'm sure people might now notice that every once in a while I'll stand up and I'll shake my shoulders. It's like, okay, get back, and it allows me to be present, allow me to be here. And it's just like these little like cues that I can do to like bring the awareness and bring the posture back, right? 'Cause no one wants to see this or one of these, like that's not enjoyable to talk from. And as well, that I think there's like, I'm a big component of, there's the way that we're using our energy is like a big piece of how we can show up, right? So if we're like closing off, putting a filter in front of our energy, well, not as much of us can get out there. You put it in reliance to a vehicle, be like, can't fill the tank or fill the battery. And if we're not running optimally, that energy that's in that fuel doesn't take us as far either.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm not going to speak too much on energy because I feel like I don't know enough on the subject, but I do know that there's some, well, whether you call it woo or whether you call it alternative science or
Yeah.
something completely radical, I don't know. But I definitely know that there is something that's interesting about energy, like people can shift energies. One of the things I definitely like, for example, one of the energy shifts that we did right away was that, like, you are in a very closed off pose to you go bold and straight.
Yeah.
That itself is an energy shift. And again, I don't know enough about energy sciences or whatever, like if there's something like that, but I can definitely feel the change in energy the
Mm.
moment I, like, become small or become big. So,
Yeah. Oh, and and again, like we don't need to know the mechanisms. We just need to know the results, right? And those results are kind of like general for most people, but you got to explore it and find. It's just like you talked about earlier about finding the right coat. It's got to start somewhere, right? Like what are all these little pieces? And like confidence isn't one thing. It's all these things. So you talked about like going to meditation, how yoga, and all of a sudden exploring body posture made all this radical change after the fact. When you started putting all these little pieces together, they start to
mm,
stack up, right? Like it's
yeah.
never any one silver bullet for any question or problem. It's all these little pieces of silver that go into making eventually the thing that gets through all this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think sometimes we try and when I say we, I mean I say we because I myself have been that person who's always looking for scientific evidence in everything, right? And sometimes we just have to realize that science is an objective truth, but your experience is also truth.
Yeah,
And um, sometimes, even if it doesn't work for someone else, it could very well work for you. Even if it's worked for 10 people, it might not work for you. We are all
yeah,
different. Like all all of the mechanisms are different in each of our bodies and
yeah,
minds and whatever else. So yeah, like you said, like you have to find your own sort of package
yeah,
and stack up things.
yeah. It's kind of like we're all going through something, and it's all part of your go through. And here's some things you can go experiment on and take that little taste and be like, "Ooh, I like this," or "I don't," and then add the things that you like, and then you can start to question and be like, "Are these serving me? Is this giving me the good results that I want?" Right? And that's all part of that experimentation that you talked
Mm,
to at the beginning.
yeah, yeah. And also, I think we tend to definitely focus on what's working and what we like, but also I think I personally like to spend a lot of time thinking through and introspecting on why do I not really like that? What triggered me there? Why is it like that? Can I solve that? How does it impact my life if I solve that? Is it important enough to solve? So even actually spending some time being curious about the parts that you don't like so much could be quite powerful, sometimes even more powerful than the things that are working and focusing on those.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a powerful place to be from, right? To and that in itself is a component of trust and confidence to be like I my initial reaction is I don't like this. What is it that I don't like? What is this actually doing? And even though I don't like it, could it serve me? Right? There
Mm,
are things that are hard, right? And I think sometimes people confuse hard with dislike, right? Be like, yeah, it might be hard, but like this may be like the exact thing that you need to do. Life's not meant to be an easy self it's not an easy journey, right? Like you can't be on just cruise control for it. And there are times that be like, oh, I don't like the hard stuff. Well, what's coming up for that hard stuff? What
yeah.
beyond that hard stuff gives you what you actually want? Is all the easy things that you like that are working giving you what you desire?
Mm, absolutely. And I think it's also sort of a muscle, right? Like that you develop, that
Mm-hmm.
you just increase it by like that 1%,
Yeah.
1%, and then it's like the gym. You don't like it, but then every day you get stronger a bit,
Yeah.
bit by bit.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah.
it's the theory of are you willing to put the reps in, right?
Mm,
Like, and I talk about the gym as the gym's a great metaphor. Is like, are you willing to go like, oh, you want the Ryan Reynolds body? Be like, that's a lot of work. Are you ready to put in are you ready to put in the reps, right? And like even preparing for our speeches this week is like, are we willing to put in the reps to be able to deliver at the performance we want to?
mm,
And whatever we give it is a direct result of the effort that we've put in prior.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Beautiful.
So from the sounds of it, sounds like you're still doing the supporting people going on their career exploration and career growth journeys. Was that an evolution of your marketing agency that you were doing, and like how does that now tie into what you're doing with your life right now?
So I currently head up this data science strategy, marketing, whatever you will call it, like this data science team that works across marketing, product strategy, um, business intelligence, all of those things.
Yeah.
And I quite enjoy that. And how, like, I think the Abundant Psyche sort of started off as a blog, and then it sort of picked up a bit of momentum, and then I started coaching people on the side for their job search. Um, the digital marketing piece definitely was something that I was always curious about. I wanted to explore further because um, I definitely knew that there was something there. And I felt a little bad at some point that I had let all of that go. So this lets me explore all of the world of digital marketing as well, because
Yeah.
I mean, I effectively run a one-person show
Yeah.
in the business. Um, so yeah, like I never really thought that the career coaching or the job search piece would become like my full-time thing, because I always knew that it's a very different part of me that gets fulfilled through
Right.
that. And then the data, the business, the strategy, um, that's a very different part of me that gets fulfilled, like that nerdy data world. And
Yeah.
um, the community of people, could it change one day? Sure, I don't know, but for now I don't think I have made a decision about being full time in my business.
Right.
Uh, but who knows, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it evolves
You, you,
into.
you don't know what's going to happen next, but what you know, I would say that you have made a decision, right? And then it's cool to hear that in your current here is like, well, part of what fulfills me is doing this coaching and supporting people on this. So this is like a freelance, a solopreneur venture. And for you, you're happy with it, not to be like this thing that has to take over everything else in your life. Be like, well, I get to come to this thing, get my fulfillment, get, financially rewarded for it, and I still have my quote unquote day job to go to, which as well fulfills me and provides all these opportunities. And I think it's a good message for people to hear is like that you can do both, because there's a lot of like mantras and like saying, "Hey, go find your side gig and then get out of your day job." Be like, that's not for everybody. And it
Mm,
doesn't need to be for everybody. Like what's right for you? Be like, "Well, this is a thing that gives me fulfillment. Here's another thing that gives me fulfillment." And they can coexist. That's like, things can coexist at the same time.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I'll just say a couple of things on that. One is a side gig taking over your entire life. Like, honestly, if it does, you probably should, like, you have designed your life wrong. Well, I shouldn't perhaps say wrong, but like some people are like that. They like to work, work, work all the time. But for most people, I think we like a balance of things. Like in economics, we read this convex preferences. So you like a mix of different things rather
Yeah.
than a lot of one thing. And I think most people are like that. And so yeah, like if you are trying to run a business that takes over your life, I would very much question at the very beginning as to, are you setting up the processes and the intention for the business right?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people who quit corporate and then working worse hours than corporate because they now run a business. And that's
Yeah.
like, I think, call me lazy or relaxed, I have never been fond of working crazy hours. I've
I
always
will
been
call you
like,
neither
let
those
let
things.
let
Yeah.
me find that one thing that works and go all in on that and do the thing in the shortest amount of time possible. Why do I
Yeah.
want to work like all day long? But of course, you, on the other hand, want to create a life where work doesn't feel like work, it feels like play. So,
Yeah.
like us having this conversation, it feels like play, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's there. And on the other side, what I think I wanted to suggest is there's this huge fire movement that's going on, right? Like the financial independence, financial freedom, and quite a lot of people are bitten by it. Like, um, I have to save, save, save. I just have to do my corporate job, my side gig, blah, blah, blah. But there's no way I'll make enough money doing my corporate job alone. And these are all very, I don't know, misinformed choices sometimes. And I feel like, can you retire yourself early even just doing a corporate job? Absolutely. Just find a higher paying corporate job, and then a higher paying corporate job,
Yeah.
and then save and invest and have that compounding, and that'll take care of itself. um Though I also always think that it's a smart idea to have a second source of income. And again, like, you don't always need to have a side gig to have a
Yeah.
second source of income. Like, your investments could be a second source. You could put in a third source by, I don't know, like renting out property or whatever. You could build out like multiple sources. You don't always need a side gig to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was that was a
No.
random tangent. Like,
No, it was a perfect tangent for that, right? Like, is no, nothing wrong. So like when you mentioned like, oh, am I lazy or relaxed? But like, neither. It is what's right for you. And there is a component of like, the old adage of like, oh, I quit my job so I could go start my business to like work double the amount of hours and make way less money per hour. Like, that's a real thing too. And like getting into business, I always tell people that are getting into it, be like, do you like getting punched in the face every day? Because that's what it's like. You're going to wake up and get to it, get punched proverbially in the face, and go, I like that. I can't wait to do it again tomorrow, every day for the rest of your business life. Like, that's the deal. Like, that's part of the investment in it. And then as you talk about different investments, you're right. There are many, many vehicles to take that investment and grow. Right? Like if you're looking to grow your, if you like being an employee track, and I all power to that, because being a boss and being a business owner is not for everybody, and it shouldn't. And it's been over. It's been made way too sexy because it is not. It's not for everybody. So you want to climb the rules, be like, invest in yourself, upskill, continue to like the best investment you will ever make is investing in yourself, in your own growth, because that will start to have huge dividends. Like, you invest in yourself, you're the only one that can do the work, and then you're able to give more value in that same amount of time because you've got more tools in your toolbox.
oh, 100%. Like, you are your biggest asset, right? Like, that is it. You have to treat yourself as your biggest asset, because like, there's a story that goes like, the plumber came for 10 minutes and they charged like whatever,
Yeah.
300 quid or something. And you ask, what did you charge me for? Like, the 10 years of work, the 10 years of experience that took me
Yeah.
to get that done in 10 minutes. That's what I charged for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, investing that is absolutely crucial. Time, energy, money, all of it, I think.
Mm.
And on the other bit that you said, let me just go back to that one, about the fact that being an entrepreneur is not as easy as it seems. Actually, like, I tend to say this a lot, that earning 100K salary is much easier than having 100K profitable, like a business that has 100K in profits 100% of the times. So, yes, this entrepreneurship, like, it's not for everybody.
No.
It's a
And
special sort of a, like, you have to have a special affinity for failure to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you gotta like the pain, like your special breed, right? And now that doesn't mean that there's opportunities to grow and compound that and do even more than an employee. Maybe there's a lot of people that flunk out, and there's also a lot of people like, what kind of life are you looking to build around this? Is this a lifestyle? Are you on the road to be a millionaire? You want to be a billionaire? Like what kind of impact are you looking to have, and then build around that, because maybe that's a side gig, or maybe that's your whole life and passion is driving towards that, but without knowing the answers to like the the why am I doing that? If you can't hit that thing with five whys, you haven't dug deep enough, and you should be kind of cautious about what happens next by not like going all in.
Yeah, and I guess quite a lot of people think about it as a money maximization problem. In reality, it's probably lifestyle optimization. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And you will get very different results based on the problem that you are solving for. Like I'm absolutely channeling the economist in me, I think, tonight. Like, but it's true though. Like, if you are going to play the game of how can I make maximum money, and if that becomes the one thing that you are always going to optimize for, guess what? Your other parts of your life are bound to suffer. But
Perfect.
if you are going to optimize, like, this much, like, and you have to be really, really clear about your desires, your wants, what you are willing to give up for what, like, your trade-offs, internal
Yeah.
trade-offs, right? And I think that's knowing yourself at a very different level that no amount of spreadsheets can do at some
Yeah.
level. Because I mean, you ask me, I love spreadsheets, but and I love making decisions on spreadsheets. I have even like, come up with spreadsheets to uh, give me, like, which job should I pick based on how much peace I want in life, how much
Yeah.
growth I want in life. All of those things are there on the spreadsheet, but ultimately there's that one thing: how does it feel?
Mm.
And that is worth more than all of those spreadsheets.
I love that. I think that's it. You know how I said earlier before we start the show, I'm going to look up and realize we've blown past the 40 minutes? We're at 43 minutes of this conversation, and what a great place to kind of put a pin in it. So, and I want to be respectful of your time. So, Sudeshna, is there anything you'd like to give a shout out to before we jump into the last question?
um I feel like, yeah, like, be creative and figure out what are the things that don't seem to connect, but where is the connection?
Mm,
And once you can creatively connect the dots, you become your own market, and that is more powerful a marketing strategy than anything else ever will.
I love that. That's awesome. All right, for the last question that I ask all my guests, we're going to jump into my time machine. We're going to go back 10 years. When we open the door, you get to give yourself one piece of advice. What would that be?
I feel like I have been quite daring and courageous in general in life, but I think I would still say, if possible, take more risks.
Love it.
And
Take more risks.
yeah, like, I think that would be the one thing that I'm also telling myself right now for the next 10 years as well. So yeah,
You're already trying to tell future you, we're trying to take
yeah,
more risks to get to you, so you're going to be happy with this. I love it. Take more risks. Be bold.
yeah. That would
Perfect.
be what I'd suggest everyone to do, I think.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I know it's late there in the UK for you, and I appreciate that you made time and were able to make this work. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I look forward to sharing it with more people.
Thank you so much, Jean. And it's been such a pleasure and honor. And yeah, like I said, it's always fun.
Yeah.
This is like you get to create your fun life, and that's
This
what
is the
we're all
point, right?
about.
Like, and that's a
Yeah,
big part of it. Yep.
yeah.
All right. And to
Thanks
everybody
so
else,
much.
thank you for watching the livecast conversation with on our special day of Friday. Next week, we're back to Wednesday. Until then, we'll see everybody on the other side.